Defend marriage using natural reasons. You do not have to use supernatural reasons. Okay, and so I want you to be confident. You will not necessarily know everything that I'm going to know at the end of this 10-minute talk. I have actually a 4-hour lecture series that I produced called Same-Sex Marriage Affects Everyone, and if I were to tell you everything on that 4-hour lecture series, I would have to talk really, really fast, and that would really not be good. So I'm going to just deal with one issue in the hopes that you will come away confident that you can defend this issue of natural marriage. So the issue I want to address today is it true that same-sex marriage affects everyone? How many times have you had somebody say, how does somebody else's marriage affect you? Right? How often do you hear that? There are actually a number of ways that somebody else's marriage or the redefinition of marriage can affect you. But I want to just focus on one today. I want to deal with the issue that Brian has already alluded to, which is the issue of religious liberty, is specifically, but more generally, how the power of the state will be expanded by the redefinition of marriage. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that same-sex marriage isn't really just about allowing more people to be married. That's the rhetoric that we hear from the other side. The idea is we're supposed to just let more people participate and it'll all be good. But that's not exactly what's going on. What's going on is instead of marriage being the union of a man and a woman, that is a fundamentally gender-based institution, marriage will become the union of any two persons. That's the change. That's what we're talking about. Well, if you change the definition of something at the legal level, of course you're changing it for everyone, right? The law affects everyone. The law is true for everybody now. And so what does it mean to say that you're going to have a rule that says marriage is not a gender-based institution, but marriage is just the union of any two persons? I want to just start by saying this is not an idea that would spring naturally to people's mind. Okay? If you think about marriage as an institution that attaches mothers and fathers to their children and to one another, this is the principal, essential public purpose of marriage, right? Marriage attaches mothers and fathers to their children and to each other. Of course, same-sex couples and opposite-sex couples are different with respect to this very thing. Right? And so, because there are, in fact, differences, the attempt to act like there aren't any differences means that the government's going to have to work overtime to change everybody's views and to change everybody's behavior. And we're seeing evidence of it, as Brian has already alluded to. We're seeing the idea that when people say children need a mother and a father, in whatever context they might say that, children need a mother and a father, that is coming very close to being considered hate speech. But in fact, it's just common sense. Now, what is happening to us? Why is this happening? It's because marriage is a natural, pre-political institution. There's been marriage around long before there was a constitution, right? There's been marriage around long before there was any kind of government, right? Marriage is something created by the people. Okay? But same-sex marriage is entirely a creature of the state. Right. Same-sex marriage is created by the state. That's what it is. Okay? Now, we're not saying same-sex couples can't buy a house together, can't leave property to each other. There are a whole lot of practical things that same-sex couples want to do, and in fact, the practical problems can all be solved without redefining marriage. That's the point. Okay? So, and I think that's an important point. The practical problems can be solved without redefining marriage. Okay? So what we have is the state attempting to redefine something throughout the whole of society. And I want to just go through some of the things that might come to mind, that might happen. Okay? For instance, some of you probably have been on marriage retreats, marriage encounter retreats, or engaged couple retreats, things like that. Some of those are sponsored by churches, some of them are not. On a lot of those kinds of things, you spend a lot of time talking about the differences between men and women. Am I right? Anybody ever been to marriage encounter? Okay. So if a same-sex couple turns up and says, we want to come too, under the new rule, they'll have to be allowed to go. And what are you going to talk about at marriage encounter if you don't talk about men and women being different, right? There goes the whole weekend. I mean, that's what most of the weekend is, right? So the whole content of what you talk about is now coming under the scrutiny of the state. This is none of the state's business.
That's right.
This is none of their business.
That's right.
You see what I mean? It's none of their stinking business. the nooks and crannies of civil society to make sure that you believe that men and women are completely interchangeable in every respect. To make sure that you believe that the union of a man and a woman is no different from the union of two men and of two women. And it's simply not true. Now, another way you can tell what is really at stake here is to look at what has happened in Canada. We've already talked a bit about Massachusetts. Let me mention what's happened in Canada, because they had same-sex marriage before anybody in the U.S. did. In Quebec last year, the government of Quebec promulgated a policy called the Quebec Policy Against Homophobia.
That's right.
The Quebec Policy Against Homophobia. Did any of you happen to find that on the internet? It's on the internet. You can find it at ruthinstitute.org. We posted it on our blog and talked about it quite a bit. Well, in the Quebec Policy Against Homophobia, the government says that they are against all forms of homophobia and they are against heterosexism. Now, what is heterosexism? Heterosexism is the view that heterosexuality is normal. Newsflash, heterosexuality is normal in our species. Okay? We are mammals. Last I looked, we are mammals. Heterosexuality is normal in our species. So when the government of Quebec says we are going to wipe out the view that heterosexuality is normal, they are asking the government to do something which cannot be done because it's not true, and they are writing themselves a blank check to do whatever they want. That's what that policy amounts to. And they even say it. We're going to wipe out homophobia and heterosexism in the workplace, in the schools, on the job, on the sporting field, in the home. What are they going to do on the sporting field? They're going to go to the locker room and monitor what the guys clown around about while they're in the shower? Give me a break. This is none of their business. So what is happening to us is that same-sex marriage is being created by the state. It is not a natural institution. It's being created by the state for purposes of the state. And I think it's now clear that we can see that same-sex marriage is a hostile takeover of civil society by the state. It's a hostile takeover of the whole civil society. That's what it is. Now, I can't believe that people who experience same-sex attraction are better off because we shut down Catholic Charities in Washington, D.C. I can't believe that your well-being depends on that. I can't believe that. Why are we doing this? We're doing it in the name of some kind of forced equality. And so what I want you to take away from this today is the understanding that defending marriage as a natural, pre-political institution is something that we need to do. Because if we don't do it, the state will be redefining it, and they will be involved in every aspect of our lives.
That's right.
And we can't have it.
That's right.
Okay? And so all of your freedom-loving friends need to understand that. If they have fiscal conservative friends, anybody have libertarian friends? Okay? We need to explain that to them. Okay? That the state is involving itself into something that is not properly its business.
That's right.
And so as you sign up for the NOM mailings and join the NOM email list and so on, you're also signing up for the Ruth Institute newsletter. We send that out once a week, and we have information there about all aspects of the marriage movement that you'll hear. And this little talk that I just did will be up online pretty soon, and you can direct your friends and neighbors to it. And on each stop of this tour, I'll be talking about a little bit different theme so that you can answer some of these questions that come up to your friends. So thank you very much, and visit me online at ruthinstitute.org. Thank you.
I spoke briefly earlier about the threats to religious liberty that come through passage of same-sex marriage. We've talked about two or three examples already, and that's why the mission of the National Organization for Marriage is both to protect marriage and the faith communities that sustain it. And we have a chance today to hear from a local pastor who stood up strongly for protecting marriage. I'm happy to have Dr. Thomas Peets at the Word of Life Christian Fellowship in Concord talk a little bit about the religious liberty aspects of same-sex marriage. Thank you.